Hello, my name's Lisa Faust, and I'd like to share a story with you that is relatable, but also ties into our music appreciation assignment. So, recently, I was in the passenger seat, my boyfriend's driving, and we're headed back home from wherever we were forced to be on like a Tuesday night. And all of a sudden, I get this thought in my head out of nowhere. And, we're not talking, the music's playing, and this thought comes in, and I notice it, and then I kind of start to dwell on it, and then I start to feel it. And my unsuspecting boyfriend asks me, like, why'd you get so quiet all of a sudden? And I'm like, I just give him this like death glare and end up staring out the window for the rest of the drive home. So the next day he approaches me and says, we need to talk. And I'm like, oh gosh. So he tells me, he's a social worker, by the way, very smart. But he tells me, I don't like to feel like I'm in trouble. And, you go from fine to being not fine. And I think you have some significant anger issues. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I just get these thoughts in my head and like these nonsensical thoughts that like fuel this fire that starts to burn in my chest, and it just wrecks my mood. It makes me so angry. And he's like, yeah, I get it, but knock it off, and I heard him. So I started to do some research, and I started, uh, reading books and finding all I can on the topic. And then we get this assignment for music appreciation. It just happens to tie in because a big part of this relief from these negative thoughts is music. So I'd like to share with you, my fellow students of our Comm 110 class, the importance of music and mental health and improvement of our quality of life. So I'm going to talk about these main points. My first main point is what, then we're going to talk about how and who benefits from music. So my first main point is what benefits result just from listening to music. You've probably already heard of like stress relief, anxiety, depression, even pain relief, but I want to talk more about, that topic that we don't really always talk about, which is that those negative thoughts that I think sometimes we often keep to ourselves, that end up taking over and affecting our mood. So there was a psychiatrist in 1980. He wrote a book called Feeling Good. His name was Dr. David Burns. He wrote this, but he didn't invent it. But it's cognitive therapy, which you've probably heard about. But he wrote the book on it and kind of informed society about it. That there are techniques to help you and to improve your mental health without having to take a pill. Some people do need medication, but he was treating all of his patients with medication, and he wasn't seeing improvements. So he started to do research on cognitive therapy, and he started to implement some of the techniques with his patients and started to see improvements, on even of his most significantly, affected patients. So a part of that cognitive therapy was music. Cognitive therapy focuses mainly on how our thoughts determine how we feel. Like in my story at the start of this, we can have these negative thoughts that invite themselves into our mind and completely change our mood. Research has shown that simply listening to music can redirect our thoughts and help us convince our brains that everything's okay. We don't need to panic and run or fight or freeze, and go silent. So that was my first main point of what benefits result from just listening to music. My second main point is how music affects our mood. There's a science behind it. Music therapy it works because there's a chemical that releases in our brain called dopamine. Dopamine is like that natural happy pill reward. We aren't crazy because we let thoughts control our mood. We just need to learn some techniques to convince our brain to stop from freaking out. I listened to a podcast called How to Un-F Your Brain. Like I said, there's a science behind how music affects our brain. I always assumed that emotions came from the heart, but it makes sense that they come from, part of our brains. So music helps us process grief and sadness and fear. And because of, like I said, the science behind it, that dopamine that releases in our brain, music helps to make that happen and can significantly affect our emotions and our mood. I've just covered that second main point on how we benefit from music. And my third and final point on music improving the quality of life is who can benefit from it. And aside from the obvious of everyone can benefit, there are some specific individuals who show significant benefits from music therapy. And some of these include children with autism, students who are in special education, teens with emotional disorders, drug and alcohol addicts, and then our elderly that are either in hospice or suffering with dementia. Many studies have been done which have proved that adding music therapy to standard care leads to greater improvements. And you can read all about this in the American Music Therapy Association. They have their own website, they have an entire association dedicated to music therapy and the research behind it. So that was my third and final main point. I've just discussed all three main points: what, how, and who benefit from music. Listening to music can reduce our stress, anxiety, depression, and help calm our thoughts. The chemical dopamine is released in our brain, like I mentioned, and acts as a natural reward and benefits our mood. Many people can benefit from music therapy and have a better overall quality of life, even those who suffer from serious mental disorders and health issues often receive music therapy. Compared to side effects from medication used to manage mental health issues, music is a much cheaper option and it has yet to show any negative effects. Please click on the link to listen to the song I've chosen for my music appreciation. This is a song that even in my lowest of moods, I can click the play button, and as soon as it starts, I'm dancing. Enjoy.